Hey, how are ya?
Beth, how are you? You ready?
Sure.
Okay, this is Real Talk, where we talk with real amazing leaders about amazing leadership issues and insights. And so today I am thrilled to be talking with Dr. Erika Figge. She's a doctor. She's based in Southern California. Erika, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Erika, can we call you Erika or should we call you doctor?
Call me Erica.
Okay. Erika has an amazing background, amazing experience. Is this a busy time for you in your practice, or is it not so busy?
That's a little bit of a complicated question because I've recently branched off from a group practice that I was a part of, and so I'm building my own brand and building clientele, and
Yeah.
it's busy in that I'm a mom of two kids who are small and trying to build a business and take care of myself and the people around me. So it's growing. Things are definitely growing, but I'm excited to take a pause here and talk to you about all this stuff.
That's awesome. That's great. It's interesting because, some people are really hunkering down and kind of waiting this out, this period of time. And others are really taking a step forward in some new directions. I don't know if this time with COVID had anything to do with your decision to make this move now, but I'm impressed that you're doing it regardless, right? It didn't keep you from doing it. That's for sure, right?
No, I definitely think that it pushed me. I've been feeling a nudge for a while. And I think one of my qualities is loyalty, but to some extent loyalty to a fault sometimes, where I haven't just jumped out on my own or
Yeah.
done the next thing yet until I've really been, pushed from behind. And so the quarantine kind of gave me an opportunity and the push that I needed. What can I say? I mean, everybody in my family is a small business owner.
Mm.
Everybody's done it on their own at
Mhm.
some point. And so for me, this doesn't feel too scary, and I have no problem, groveling with the pigs and really digging in. And it's okay. If you sometimes you've got to really just grind hard, and other times you can coast a little bit. And right now we are groveling and grinding fun.
Yeah, I know a little bit about your background now, so I know that you've been through similar experiences, and we're going to get into that because I want people that listen to this to understand your background. That part of what your life's experience that's brought you to who you are today and what you're contributing today. So why don't we put some of those pieces in place? Give us your story, where you were raised. Tell us about your family now.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience in sports and athletics, that type of thing. Okay.
Sure. So I grew up in South Orange County in Rancho Santa Margarita. In fact, I'm coming to you live from my childhood home today, actually.
Oh, nice.
But I went to a local high school. I was very fortunate to get a great education at a local private high school, Santa Margarita. And then I played water polo at USC, where I studied sociology, and I was the thankful recipient of a full ride athletic scholarship that really afforded me a fantastic opportunity to both compete and be well educated. And so that was great. While I was in college, I was also playing on the national team for the United States. And so all my moments were full. There was not a lot of room for extracurriculars, if you will. But I was at one point the youngest water polo player on the women's national team to travel. I was taken to a tournament in Montreal called the Canada Cup. I believe I was 16. I maybe just turned 16.
Oh.
It was a wild experience. We stayed in some empty dorms that were being renovated and painted, and my bag got stolen, or no, my passport, and my wallet got stolen out of my bag, like while we were playing a game. It was a really interesting baptism, and welcoming into this world of international competition. But I spent 6 years as a mainstay on the national team. I was always on the bubble. It was a very stressful 6 years of my life. But through all of that very difficult stuff and that really challenging time, a lot of really good things came out of that. My character was sharpened. I developed a lot of the skills that I use today as a doctor, as a mom, as a spouse. And, while you're like, oh gosh, that was so hard, there are so many good things, relationships that came out of that. experience. And, I don't necessarily have any regrets. I'm sure there might have been
Yeah.
some different decisions along the way that would have made things a little easier for me, but I've done hard things. And so while we're in this very hard season of COVID, I can draw upon those things, and on rough, rough days, I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I can get through this because I have weathered some storms.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, there's some of us who aren't even convinced yet that water polo isn't fake because it
Ah,
seems impossible to do. I've watched it, right? I don't know how you do it. I mean, that's true athleticism to do that. I mean, to hold yourself in the water and throw that ball around. I played soccer, but
yeah,
you get to play on solid ground, right?
you sure do. At water
Yeah.
polo, you can't touch the wall, you can't touch the bottom. You get, your
Oh,
brakes are not on solid ground either. You're waiting for the,
yeah.
someone scores a goal, you don't stop and sit around, you swim to the halfway point and then you keep going. And any wrestling and people are trying to drown you the whole time, and and it's
It's a crazy sport. So just the fact that you did that and you excelled at it, I mean, you get points for that alone. I'm sure that helps you out today. So let's talk a little bit about your family. Is there anything you'd like to share with us? You got 2 kids, you said, right?
Yep, I have 2 kids. I'm married to a woman, and so she birthed the first one, and I had the joy and the chance to birth the second one, which she's
Oh,
very
wow.
thankful for because
Yeah.
her experience was a little more colorful than mine. And we live in Southern Orange County, and our kids are small. They're only they're about to be 3 and 1.5. So I'm thankful that they're so young at this point, because really they're just enjoying more time with us home. If they were in school, I see a lot of school age kids that are definitely really having a hard time right now, and it's hard for
Yeah,
the parents and
absolutely.
everybody involved. But yeah, we're living and doing the best we can. I mean, I'm not going to say we're thriving, but we're growing. We're iron sharpening iron here, and we're experiencing all the things that come with having little kids.
And how many siblings do you have?
Oh, I have a sister. She's 3 years younger than me. Also grew up playing water polo. Totally different path when she got to college. She decided she didn't love where she was at, and she tried to transfer, and just sort of fizzled out, and some injuries and things like that. So she just took a different path, and her and her longtime boyfriend live nearby, and I have a beautiful niece who's 6, and so I'm thankful that we get to spend a lot of time together, especially now.
Yeah, and you're close to them. That's great. So, and you're a doctor, you're a chiropractor.
I
So
am.
tell us a little bit about how you made that choice. How did you decide to
Sure.
go into that?
Well, at the end of my water polo career with the national team, I could feel that things were not going swimmingly, no pun intended. But I knew that once things stopped, I was going to need a job. And so I got my strength and conditioning certification, CSCS, and it's like the most highly recognized strength and conditioning certification out there. So I could teach at the college level if I wanted to, or with a professional team. But I knew I just needed something that I could literally transition from. I will be getting zero income the day that this ends, and I need to be able to pay my bills. So I did that. Got pretty good, at that. I was working with a couple other people doing basically like we had like a private athletic training room, if you will, and very successful. My days were packed, and I eventually ran into a period where I couldn't do anything else because I was out of time, and I felt like I could do more for my patients. And I also had a friend who was going through a chiropractic school, and I had studied with her, and I just thought I could do this. This really feels like normal and natural to me, and the concepts are easy for me to understand. And I was also raised with a lot of alternative therapies, so chiropractic, acupuncture, Ayurveda, just healthy eating. My parents are very active and fit, and we have experienced a lot of like addiction and obesity just outside of our small nuclear family. So it just health and wellness became very important especially to my mom as we were growing up, and so she raised us in that way. And sort of one thing segued into another, and a patient came in and watched me. He was watching me work on somebody, and he looked at me. He's like, he's a chiropractic student. He was coming in for treatment, actually. He said, "Why aren't you in school for this?" I said, "Well, I studied sociology at USC. I don't have any of the prereqs. You know, this I can't. I don't have any of the requirements." And he goes, well, I was a sociology major in school and they're making it work. I'm taking the extra prereqs on the weekends. You should just apply and see what happens. And lo and behold, I had actually taken a lot of science courses and kinesiology classes mixed in at my time at USC. And I only needed one more science. And they wanted me to start school in like 3 weeks, but I'm like, I have a job and stuff. I need to get all my ducks in a row first. So I started school 3 months later, and the rest was history. So, and my time in chiropractic college was fruitful. I mean, I worked all the way through. It's a 3-year, 4-month program at Los Angeles College of Chiropractic. And thankfully, I qualified for some scholarship there as well. I was the student body president at one time. I was VP of Alumni Affairs before that. So I got really involved. I mean, I have a tendency just, I'm going to go all in if I'm going to do this and make the most of my time. But I worked all the way through, and I was full-time student, full class load the whole time. I got married while I was in school. Ashley got pregnant while we were in school, and we did IVF for her. And it was just, I don't know how I did all that.
You got it done though. So
Yeah.
let's go back. I want to ask you kind of it's an intriguing question for me. So, I mean, do the best you can to answer it. Maybe it'll be clear for you, but can you think back to when you first realized that you had a voice, that someone or that the world needed your leadership? Can you think of any time in your life or experience? Maybe it was the sports, or maybe it was even earlier. I'm imagining it's probably earlier than your later teen year sports, right?
Yeah, I think I recognized. Well, it's interesting because I've captained a lot of teams.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I first started playing water polo, I think I was about 9, and I was on a 11 and under or 10 and under boys team.
Oh.
There wasn't a girls team for my age group at that time, which now is like unheard of. In California, there's girls teams for every
sport.
Every sport pretty much. But I was the captain of this boys team, and I'm sure the boys really just loved that. That some girls coming in and pulling on my suit and telling me, what to do, or whatever. I don't remember all the details, but there were 3 of us girls, and we definitely held our own. But I was the captain of the team. So I remember early on someone said like that it was a good idea that I was doing that, I guess. Yeah. I captained my high school team. I captained the women's junior national team at one point. And that actually that really was in my later teen years, because I was a freshman in college in 2005. We won a junior world championship, and I was the captain of that team. And my role wasn't so much like the water polo MVP of that team. I was a solid force on that team. And I think the really important thing I learned there in that time frame was from my coaches, who entrusted me 100%, not just with my water polo, but with my leadership role. And that's where I really felt the most empowered, I would say, as a captain, because the coaches you could feel when someone trusts you, right? You could just tell, like, there's no second guessing. I played the entire game, never came out, just keep going.
They weren't losing sleep over Erika.
Yeah. So, but they allowed me really to like step into that leadership role. Mm-hmm. I think I played also for coaches that don't necessarily allow the athletes to be leaders, right? Their coach is like the leader and the captain, and it's their way or the highway kind of thing. So in other roles, in other teams, it was a little more challenging, and I learned different things about myself. And I think actually came out of some of those team captain roles and those experiences feeling really unsatisfied. And so fast forward to now, when I'm building my own brand and my own company, for now it's just me, and I'm working on some, affiliations and eventually hiring some people on. I get to build the team that I know is going to be successful and has the right value system, has the grit, mm-hmm. has their strengths, their weaknesses. They're going to be better at me in certain areas, and I'll be better than them. But, it's going to be this cohesive team effort towards really helping more people with like their health and wellness. But I think I am blessed to see that my leadership role and my voice really matters when patients trust me. And even though it's not this like huge team, it's not Team USA, it's not USC, it's maybe a two-person team where it's just you and me. I'm the coach, you're the captain, and I'm actually just saying, hey, here's how I think you should go about this, or here's some tools. You're the captain of your life, of your team, of your body. I want to help. I want to be the coach that facilitates a good leadership role of a human being over their own livelihood and wellness. I'm trying to just not be a dictator for them, but and not to force them into anything, but facilitate good, healthy living, because you are capable of so many important, beautiful, grand, important things. And it's really about just like putting somebody in the right position and then letting them go. And so that's the kind of thing that I learned from being a team captain and being either successful in our venture. I mean, I've won a CIF championship. I've lost 3 CIF championships. I've won an NCAA title, and then I lost 3 NCAA titles.
Mm.
I've been the alternate of an Olympic team. I've gotten silver at world championships, and lost in the final seconds of several games. So much heartbreak, really. So I could go back and be like, oh my gosh, so much heartbreak and disappointment, but also so much learned that I can now, share with you, or I can share with my patients. I help my kids and my friends, my wife, my family, my sister, whoever, like get through some stuff, or like, hey, this is what I learned. Here's how I might approach this differently this time around.
That's awesome. So that you've found quite a bit of value then, even in the setbacks or failures or losses.
Yeah, I don't think in the moment it felt,
No,
like
sucks.
absolute garbage.
Yeah.
But I want people to know that they are capable of more, because if somebody had told me then, look, you are capable of so much more,
Mm.
then, or get your head out of the sand, or whatever external things were going on that was like affecting like my performance or something, like you just have to, you need somebody to grab you and say, hey, I can help you with this, or here's where I think you're missing the boat. And so, I mean, I studied sociology, so it's impossible to ignore those. I was listening, to Dave's talk with you, Dave Canales' interview, where he's talking about like
Yeah.
the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the social aspects of stuff. As a sociology major, it's impossible for me to ignore all those things, because all of those things are affected by your health and wellness. If you're in pain, you've got dysfunction, you can't live your life from, because of some physical ailment. So all of my experiences, like, I think, give me a better, well-rounded approach to treating a human, from like a medical perspective. And I have found more success when you really deal with the person instead of the problem. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I love that. I've been talking. I get to talk with lots of folks these days, and
Yeah.
I learn from them all. And I'm discovering just how important mindset is to whatever we're endeavoring or trying to solve. Right.
Yeah.
The event that you and I could be witnessing is going to have a different experience on you than it does on me, based on the event that we create or the experience we create within our mind. Right.
Sure.
And as you were describing these experiences you've had in sports, probably in other areas too, there's a theme there where you ended up being the captain, you ended up being the leader, And
Yeah.
I sense that it wasn't that you were aspiring for that, or that you were, vote for me type of a thing.
Couldn't help myself. You just sort of like fill the role that is you.
You fill the role, you fill the need, and you let your voice. When I talk to you, Erika, the word voice keeps coming to mind, right? That you've developed your voice, right?
Yeah.
And I know for me and the people that I work with, I mean, what we do at Learning Point, I think you may know this a little bit, is we coach management teams, leadership teams, and individual leaders in the workplace mostly, right? That's what we do. And one of the biggest impediments for their success is what they're telling themselves, okay?
Yeah.
And in today's world, it's real easy to feel like, the world wants to squelch my voice.
Yeah.
We're inhibited to even share our thoughts and opinions because someone isn't going to like it and they're going to squelch it, right? And even if it's not true, that's what we're thinking.
Sure.
And I know
Perception is reality in all realms, right?
Yeah. And for me, I know that through my life, I've had to learn, I'm still learning, I'm not done doing this yet, but some of my biggest obstacles have been the things that I've told myself. The
Sure.
biggest squelcher, I don't know if squelcher is a word, but the biggest, you know, hamper has been what I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Because you've done some extraordinary things, right?
Hmm.
You're outside the mainstream with what you've done,
Yeah.
athletically, you know, scholastically, professionally, and so forth. Have you ever felt that your voice didn't matter? So if you were talking to younger professionals or even women, girls, you know, that are growing, they're just now discovering some of the ways that they can make a difference in the world. And I know that's a heavy question, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think some of the most fun things for me to work on now is actually working with young girls. We had an opportunity to be part of the ESPN Body Edition back in 2010, which, you know, may or may not be controversial because in those pictures, nobody's wearing any clothes, but there's not like any indecent exposure happening. But I remember that the reason that the majority of us agreed to do that is because we wanted to show as athletes, number one, body image was so important. Like we're, you know, muscular and strong and all that kind of stuff, healthy women doing something incredible with our bodies. So there was like that aspect. But I think now, after I was done playing, I also became a coach, and I got to really work with a ton of young girls who are going through a lot of hard stuff. I mean, I've been through a lot of hard stuff. I think I've just learned to help empower girls. You know, you help them with positive body image, you help them with confidence. You know, I'll never forget, my kids have godparents, and they have a daughter, and I at one point worked with her getting her kind of ready for college or high school water polo. Actually, she eventually went on to play in college, but she wouldn't look at herself in the mirror. She certainly wouldn't look at me. And her, you know, she's like super awkward, and the way she carried herself was just, she just felt a little uncomfortable, or she seemed uncomfortable in her own skin. And my goal for her was literally to look at herself in the mirror, look at somebody in the eyes when you're communicating with them, and then teach her like body awareness. So a couple of things like happen when you do that. Just in order to like look at yourself in the mirror, like you've got to stand up straight, right? Like you have to pick up your head. All of a sudden your posture is like a little bit better. You know, when you're engaging with someone, all kinds of different things happen. But then, and then improving her body awareness made her more comfortable in her own skin. Do you think any of that describes what a chiropractor or a trainer might do? No, it's more like therapist of some kind, I suppose, or life coach or whatever. But the most rewarding thing is that now there's no problem with eye contact with anyone, talking to people, going to college, playing water polo in college, all that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's a great success story where I got to help bring along this young girl and help her be herself. I'm trying to shape her into something that she's not, but just to help her step into her own. And along my coaching journey, as a water polo coach with an Olympic development program, I got to kind of help some of these girls understand, look, you're capable of more. I have a very high expectation as a coach. You know, you will be prepared, you will show up on time, you will work hard, you will recover well. You know, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with, you know, athletics or, you know, student athlete even. So as a doctor, I get to kind of instill some of that stuff in my patients, because I'd really be doing them a disservice if I just adjusted them and sent them on their way. My goal is really to empower the patient, right? Whether that's you know, a young girl or a mom or a grandparent of, you know, whoever they are, I'd like to show them that they're capable, likely, of more, and that there's more to be had, you know, from their life story. Because, you know, if they can take better care of, you know, your body as a temple, then, you know, good things come after that. So there's just so much now, especially with like social media and things like that with girls, lots of like body shaming and
Mhm.
negative messages. But I think the more we can do to empower a person individually where they're really feeling good about themselves, then that can affect all areas of their life positively.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, as a chiropractor, a lot of your practice and adjusting the body, as you said, they need to be there, right? Physically
Yeah.
present. But
Yeah.
are you able to do any telehealth type work with any of your patients or?
Yes, yes. And I actually questioned myself at the beginning of this if that would be effective or not. A lot of what chiropractic is touch, right? Like I physically, in the type of chiropractic work that I do, I physically am earning the trust of my patient, first of all, and with consent, I'm putting my hands on them in order to manually adjust them or do some soft tissue work or whatever. But what I do a lot of is movement therapy. So whether that's therapeutic exercise, strength training, postural alignment, things like that, ergonomic changes, all of that stuff, if you're cueing the person properly, can be done just like this. I mean, I give you a couple cues about sitting up tall in your chair and lifting the top of your head towards the ceiling, and your ears, your shoulders, and your hips should all be in a line, and then take you through a simple breathing exercise where all of a sudden you're like, oh, my brain feels clearer and I feel blood flow more into like my arms or something, so there was a few patients at the beginning of quarantine that were needing help, and I took them through a few things just like we're doing now. And they're like, wow, I feel so much better. I'm like, really? Even though I know, it would be no different minus the adjustment than what I'd be doing with them in the office. It was very clear, quickly became very clear that you could do just a few things, teach somebody something. And the great thing about that, Mark, is that you are empowering the patient because all I'm doing is instructing you and you are doing all of the work to help yourself feel better.
Yeah, that's
Don't even
awesome.
have to touch you.
And I mean, we're not going to talk about me on here, but I've got a lot of friends. Okay.
Oh, for a friend, asking for a
Yeah,
friend.
for a friend. They're middle-aged, men. And so it strikes me that, yeah, you can help young girls. There's a lot you could do to help a young girl, right?
Sure.
That's growing. Women, especially, you can empathize with them. You've been through a lot. But it strikes me that you could also offer a lot to even a middle-aged man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
you could,
especially right now, a lot of people, just in general, a lot of people working from home, obviously, a lot of sitting at a desk you might not normally sit at, or you don't have a desk, so you're on the couch, or you're hiding in your room because your kids can't have access to you while you're on a conference call. So there's a lot of ergonomical things that are happening that are wreaking so much havoc. So
well, even just the empowering side of that, it's the ergonomic, not just the liabilities or the chronic negative impact that could come from poor ergonomics, but
yeah,
what you talked about is the posture, the
yeah,
breathing,
yeah,
clears the mind, makes you,
sure.
even if it's 10 or 15% better today, huge.
Yeah, I mean, breathing is something I talk to people so much about. Especially when we get stressed, we start to all this kind of stuff happens. And I mean, I hate to tell you, but your lungs are not up here. And so when you're breathing like this, you're not actually taking in more oxygen. You're doing shrugs, your neck's getting tight. At the end of the day, you're irritable and you've got a headache and your brain's not functioning the way that it should. But it's like a simple change, and even from like a body language perspective, so like from sociologically looking at things, right? If you're confident and you stand up straight, even if you're faking it, right, your mentality becomes better and your leadership becomes better, and the way people perceive you is more like confident, more you're a stronger person. Oh, they must be like somebody more important, whatever. And
Right.
then, but also when you stand up like that, you can breathe better. Your blood flows better. So many good things happen. So not only are you physically and physiologically doing more, you're emotionally feeling better about yourself as well. Like so many good things happen just when you change your positioning.
So some of that making it a habit. We know this, but it's for all those other people, my friends that don't know this yet.
Uh-huh.
If it became a habit, that could be like worth 2 cups of coffee in the morning, right? Or a Diet Coke. It replaces
Yeah.
some of those things that we use to compensate for low energy and,
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things we can't live without. It's sleep,
yeah.
water, air, and food. And if you
But
could just
Diet Cokes, we can at least dial back a few of those, right?
do less Diet Cokes, a few more breathing exercises, and you might feel pretty good.
Again, not for me. We're talking for those
Right.
other
For
people.
a friend.
Advice. Yeah. So Erika, tell me, when you mentioned that you've been through some hard stuff, right? You've
Yeah.
been through some rough stuff. Where do you go for wisdom or help? Or, and if you don't, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't rehearse these questions, so if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But have you, if you look back and reflect, who were some of the people that helped you through some of these challenging times, or were there any? Can you think of anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely one juncture when I was going through like some rough family stuff, just I was seeing a great therapist. She's this tiny little fireball of a Christian woman, hippie-ish sort of lady, and so I was going to a therapist that was very helpful. And I had a couple of great friends who are still really great friends, and I really believe iron sharpens iron, and you
Mm,
become like the people you surround yourself with. And so
mm,
I have really chosen wisely with my friends, and of course they're never going to tell you the things that you want to hear. It's what you need to hear and not what you want to hear always. That's like the most helpful stuff. um and funny enough, Molly Davis,
mm,
who obviously
yeah.
is our connection here. While I haven't had a lot of physical in contact or in person contact with Molly, I spent a couple of very important transitional periods in my life at Molly's cabin
Oh, yeah.
in Glenwood. And she leaves a big footprint on your heart. I mean, you can't help but really be struck by the things that she says, and also the space she creates for you. I remember the first time I met her, I mean, I was absolutely in a broken place in my life, and it was kind of hitting the reset button.
Hmm.
And so her niece was my best friend in college, and we went up to
Hmm.
the cabin, and Molly just created this like safe space, but not created, like she exists in this safe
Yeah,
space. This is her life.
right.
And so I was able just to be welcomed into that safe space, and she left a very profound imprint on me, the way she lives her life and how she conducts herself and her marriage and her with her kids. And so she's been somebody who I always go back to in my mind, and she's always popped up, you know, time after time. If I haven't connected with her, oh, I see something from her or on social media, and then circle back and reconnect with her. So that's been her role has been important. She probably doesn't know it until she watches this, but that and I think I just had a lot of coaches who, whether or not the experience at the time was, necessarily positive or it was challenging, I learned a lot from different leaders that were, in each time period. I learned about, preparation and self-respect and working hard and time management, all those kind of things that are just like important life lessons. Some of it I feel like you're born with, you're not just learning grit. Sometimes it's something it's a God-given gift and you got it.
Let
That's
me
all I have to say about
let
that.
me ask you this question, and this has to do with the team experience. Okay.
Hmm.
What we do at Learning Point again is we help management teams lead as one. We
Right.
like that phrase, lead as one. Okay. They often have tremendous professional expertise and prowess when it comes to whatever their function is, finance, operations, whatever it happens to be. But they struggle when it comes to actually working as a team.
Hmm.
Their product is to lead as one to get their organization to really take off and run
Sure.
successfully, right? I imagine that because of where you have spent most of your athletic career has been in the elite category, really, right? Not all of it, but most of it.
True.
These athletes, they know how to swim, they know how to throw, or whatever it is you guys,
Sure.
whatever you do. They're good at the mechanics of the game, right?
Hmm.
But I've been around sports enough to know that just because you put 10 highly accomplished athletes in the same game doesn't mean they're going to work as a team. So can you share with us some of the things? Let's just suppose for a minute that we hired you to talk to a management team or a group
Hmm.
of management teams. What are some of the principles of truth that you have learned? I was going to say tricks, but they're not tricks, right? The
No.
truths that you have learned that are important for highly accomplished individuals to understand when it comes to functioning well as a team? What comes to mind?
Well, I think getting everybody on the same page is important. The best way to guarantee success is that there's full buy-in with the plan. Because I've been a part of many great teams where there wasn't complete buy-in and we failed miserably. Even with the roster that could have been a national team, like at the high school level, we failed miserably because we didn't believe in the plan, or there were a few of us who thought we knew better.
Mm.
And I'll never forget my college coach telling me, you know, just ripping me when I was talking to him about something in high school. And even if the plan's bad, and the leadership is not great, you get on the same page and you just all move forward together and you will still have likely good success. And so when there's division, I mean, you've got to work through that stuff. I'm clear, honest communication, listening, listening to somebody to hear them instead of listening to respond. All of these things really play out. Even as a doctor, I've got to communicate well. I have to listen to hear, not listen to respond. I may not have the answer if I'm not listening, if I might miss something, if I'm not really clearly listening to what the person has to say. You've got to earn trust. If you don't trust the person next to you, you've got no chance, right? I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest link kind of thing. And so that goes for teams, for business, for family life, for a doctor-patient relationship. And I think where I now I can see it, I wasn't willing to be uncomfortable with people who I maybe needed to say, hey, snap out of it. You're not following the plan, or what's the problem here? Can we address this? I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I didn't want to ruffle feathers, or I wasn't given that power by the coach per se to step in there. He might have wanted to do that instead of having the team captain do it, or I wasn't willing. I don't know. Maybe it was both of us.
Yeah.
Totally possible. But now I've realized it does no good, and it's a complete disservice to the people around you if you're not willing to call out the problem.
Yeah.
Be uncomfortable for a little bit. Like Molly talked about, order, disorder, reorder.
Yeah.
That's like a patient comes in, they're not feeling very good, and I'm like, well, we're going to have to make these changes, and the disorder is going to feel kind of crummy, and you might not like it, but in a couple of weeks or after like a few visits, things will be better. And you've got to get through the hard stuff to come out the other side, and inevitably things get better. And if they don't, then you've got either the wrong diagnosis or you've got the wrong solution, and you missed something, so you've got to go back. It's the same thing with the team approach, with business, and the leaders have to be willing to do the hard work too. So you can talk the talk, but if you're not going to walk the walk, there's no respect there. So
Yeah.
and it does you a disservice, right? As a leader, it does me no good if I'm trying to tell someone that they need to eat more, drink more water, eat more vegetables, work out, do all this stuff. I finally had that come to Jesus meeting with myself where my kids are getting enough sleep, and I feel like, okay, I could do this. So I'm getting up early in the morning. I'm going to lift weights with a couple of friends 3 or 4 times a week, drinking more water. I'm doing my Wim Hof breathing. I'm trying to better myself because I need to do it for me, number one. But then I'm the role model for my patients. I'm a role model for my kids, for my family. You've got to step up, step into it. It's all about honesty and trust. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be honest with yourself, honest with the people around you, trust the plan.
I completely believe what you're saying. And it occurs to me as you were talking that most of the people we work with, I think academically, they get the principles that you just described. It's not about understanding what they are.
Yeah.
It's the work. You mentioned doing the work, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes going back and doing the work again, being able to recognize and call out when it's not working.
Yeah.
You said that one of the things you owe it to your team to bring it to their attention, to put it on the table, to call it out. That's awesome. So let's end with this question. Okay, Erika, thank you for taking time on this session. You're an accomplished woman. You're a professional, right? You've been a leader in most settings that you've taken on, that you've been a part of. You've stepped into that role of leadership. So do you believe that the leadership that a woman can provide in the workplace is valuable? I know the answer to that. I just want you to declare what you believe.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Because
No,
that's important.
yes.
Then what,
Resoundingly 100% yes.
resoundingly, yeah, it's just too obvious. What message would you want to share with men in the workplace? With most men, most leadership positions still are filled with men, although the demographics are changing. But what message would you want to share with men when it comes to embracing and actually benefiting from the leadership that women can provide? Does that make sense? The question?
Wow, that is a loaded question. I think well, gosh, I mean, there's just so much that each person brings to the table. I think that I think that just every person brings their life experience to the table and can offer something. And so as more women are brought up into the ranks and allowed into these rooms, I think it's just a matter of having respect for your peers. It doesn't necessarily have to be male or female, whoever it is. Allow that person to step into their role and their best self. And I think there's been a culture of putting women in a corner and saying they're probably not capable of this, or in fact we are in a lot of cases. Of course there's some like physical jobs where it might be like physically a lot more difficult for a female to do some kind of job, but as far as a leadership role, women are just as capable and often bring a different viewpoint and might meet an emotional need a little bit better than their male counterpart, and just might look at something a little differently and fill a void that someone might not have ever thought of before if it had only been men in the room.
Have you ever felt or that your assertiveness was misunderstood?
Oh, sure. I mean, even in junior high, I was like this strong girl who played water polo. I will never forget at our 8th grade graduation, I had a really small class, like only 14 people. I'll never forget at graduation, like one of the boys was giving a speech and he like basically confessed that like these boys had liked me, but nobody wanted to talk to me because they were afraid of me, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think I'm aware, like I'm tall, I have a lot of muscle, like I've been afforded a lot of great opportunities. And yes, I've been a great athlete and all of that stuff, but I'm just Erika, you know what I mean? So I think I have to just really continue to step into myself and let people meet me where I am. And I did a decent amount of time kind of shrinking myself maybe to fit a mold for other people's sake. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve anybody. And so you just have to be confidently you. And the more confident you are, the less likely people are to come and try to squash you in whatever atmosphere that is, whether that's the only female in the room, or it's the new person in the team, or the new neighbor, or anything. I mean, you just try to put yourself out there, and if people don't like you, that's okay too. I don't remember who was talking to me or where I heard this, but if everybody likes you and you haven't ruffled anybody's feathers ever, you have a problem. Right? Like if everybody you have a problem, you're too nice, you're not being honest at some point, because you really can't possibly agree with everything with everybody. So I just have I used to get Oprah's magazine for some time, like when I was in high school, and she had this list of different kinds of friends. And so one of my best friends and I in college were, reading this magazine, and Oprah had described one of the kinds of friends was the honest friend, which sometimes is not very comfortable, but you appreciate that honest person because at the end of the day, it's like, thank God they told me. Whether it's the salad in your teeth or, hey, you've got some, whatever, something, like just let the person know.
Right.
Right. So they don't make a fool of themselves like later on. So I'm the honest friend.
That's good. That's one of your strengths then. Okay. Give us
Yeah.
what are two other, if we were talking to the people that you've led, that
Yeah.
have been led by you, that you're close to, what would they say are two other leadership strengths that you have?
I'd say empathy
Okay.
is one of my strengths. And I think, I mean, I have no problem working hard.
Excellent. Good. Hard work, work ethic, empathy, honesty. Yeah, excellent. Well, great. Erika, thank you so much. This has been fun. We'll have to do this again.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And then we'll have to do this again in 6 months. I'd love to find out, learn how your practice, how your business has expanded
Yeah.
over the next 6 months or so. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be working towards some more like corporate wellness stuff, which it sounds canned, but right now it's like there are very specific needs of teams of people working from home who are dealing with very high levels of stress.
Yeah.
And everybody's looked a little different, but there's a few things that people could really do to improve their situations. So
yeah, we should do another one on just that focuses on that if you're willing, because
sure.
that is a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Erika.
Thanks, Mark.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.